Okay, let us look at the autonomic nervous system. We have already seen the peripheral nervous system, and we said that it is about all those nerves that are outside the central nervous system, that is outside this brain and the spinal cord. That's where you find the peripheral nervous system. We also noted that the peripheral nervous system consists of sensory nerves and also motor nerves. And then under the motor nerves, we have what we call the voluntary nervous system and then the involuntary nervous system. What we can basically term as the somatic nervous system, that is the voluntary, and then the involuntary, which we term as the autonomic nervous system. So we want to look into the autonomic nervous system in detail. So we want to know what does it do, what are the divisions of the autonomic nervous system, and under what circumstances do we have the different components of the autonomic nervous system coming into play. Okay, so the autonomic nervous system controls all the involuntary actions. For example, you can't say that you want to increase the rate at which your heart beats. You can't. You can't say that you want the digestion to take place at a faster rate. You can't. All these are examples of what we term as involuntary actions. Okay, involuntary actions. So the involuntary actions help in maintaining a constant internal environment. That means that, for example, if your glucose levels increase, your blood glucose levels increase, the pancreas is able to secrete insulin such that the blood glucose levels are brought to normal. So in doing that, that means that the internal environment is kept constant, which is basically the concept of homeostasis. So the autonomic nervous system helps in adjusting very many parameters to make sure that they are within the normal ranges. The nerve fibers of the autonomic nervous system connect the central nervous system to these organs. Okay, remember these organs are the ones performing all these different roles. The heart pumping blood, you have the liver doing a lot of metabolism of fats, proteins, carbohydrates, and a number of other functions. So you have the intestines, you have the lungs. All these require supply of nerve fibers that can help in making sure that these different actions, whether it is the dilation of the bronchioles, whether it is making sure that you have sufficient supply of blood to the GIT such that absorption happens and things like that. All these are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is divided into two. One, the sympathetic nervous system, which basically is released in situations where you are stressed. Okay, if you see a snake, you can decide to run away, or you gather sufficient strength to get a stick and beat it. But in you beating the snake, you will not remain in the same psychological state or physiological state as compared to when you have not yet seen the snake. So when you see this huge snake, immediately your heart starts racing, blood supply to the important organs increase, then the blood pressure also increases. So you have a number of the dilation of the pupils, the diversion of blood from the less important organs to the most important organs for you to be able to deal with the situation. So that is the sympathetic nervous system playing an important role there. So that kind of situation is what we call the flight or fight response that you have there. And then if that stressful condition or situation is not there, then it is this parasympathetic nervous system that actually takes control. For it, it is ensuring that you are calm and you are not restless. Okay, so that means the focus is on ensuring that your body gets the sufficient calming effect that you need, the rest, and then you under rest, of course, you have particular physiological processes happening, and that is actually what you want. The reason as to why we want to rest is to make sure that your body carries out some of the important processes, biochemical processes, including digestion. Okay, including digestion happening. So the parasympathetic nervous system is the one that brings that calming effect that we need, especially if you have been stressed. So being overstressed or being stressed for a long period of time is actually not good. So the parasympathetic nervous system helps us to calm down. Okay, so these are the two autonomic nervous system division, the parasympathetic and then the sympathetic division. So they actually act in opposite. One is for stress, one is for calming us down. So what happens? Let's focus especially on this side where you have the sympathetic division. So if you see a snake, your pupil would the pupil of the eye would dilate. There would be inhibition of salivary secretion. Okay, the salivary gland will be inhibited. You will also have relaxation of the bronchioles. This will allow you to breathe in very fast and make sure that oxygen is delivered to the lungs such that respiration happens in presence of oxygen. Your heart rate will beat, so you have an increase in the heart rate, and then digestion will not really happen under this situation. So digestion is inhibited. Okay, and then if digestion is inhibited, then you would expect that the pancreas, the activity of the pancreas is also inhibited. But again, remember that there is also need to have glucose under these stressful conditions. So this glucose means it comes from the liver. Okay, but at the same time you have the gallbladder being inhibited. The adrenal medulla is stimulated because remember the catecholamines secreted by the adrenal medulla. The catecholamines include adrenaline, which actually contributes to all the things here. you will have noradrenaline and adrenaline contributing to all these effects. So if they ask you the effects of adrenaline, give us the effects of the sympathetic nervous system. It will inhibit emptying of the bladder, and then to promote ejaculation and vaginal contraction. Okay, so the opposite of all the things are the ones that will be carried out by the parasympathetic. Okay, the opposite of all these things that we have mentioned. If you talk about dilation here, then here we talk about constriction. We talk about inhibition of salivary gland secretion, then this side we talk about stimulation of salivary gland secretion, just like that up to down there. Okay, so we have seen the roles of the effect of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, but system consists of nerve fibers. Okay, consists of nerve fibers. All these organs are supplied by nerve fibers. So these nerve fibers basically can be categorized into two. We have the preganglionic fibers and then the postganglionic fibers. Remember what a ganglion is: a bundle of cell bodies, and synapses is what we call the ganglion. Okay, if it's about the plural, it is ganglia. So nerve fibers that are before the ganglion are called the preganglionic fibers. Nerve fibers that are after the ganglia, we call them the postganglionic fibers. Okay, remember this: post before, pre before, and then post after. And we have really defined what a ganglion is. So what are the similarities? Having looked at the differences, both of them, both sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, we have post-ganglionic and preganglionic fibers. Both also originate from the CNS and contain, that is, originate from the central nervous system and contain the ganglia. They release the neurotransmitter, both of them release the neurotransmitter called acetylcholine from the preganglionic fibers. Okay. So we have talked about the differences of the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system based on the functions. What about based on the structures? Okay. Sympathetic nervous system mainly originate from the spinal cord, and then the parasympathetic and mainly the cranial nerves. That means that they originate from the brain. Okay. The location of the ganglion, these ones are closer to the spinal cord, and then for the parasympathetic, they are closer to the effectors, which are the muscles or the glands. That means because the ganglion are located closer to the spinal cord, that means that the preganglionic fibers are actually short, whereas the postganglionic fibers are long. And the opposite happens because here we are saying that the ganglion are closer, the ganglion is closer to the effector. That means it is the post-ganglionic fiber that is actually short, but the pre-ganglionic fiber is actually long. The nervous system covers a wide area, whereas the parasympathetic is localized. Noradrenaline. Noradrenaline is the neurotransmitter, the effector in the sympathetic nervous system, whereas acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter for the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is activated under stress, whereas the parasympathetic is dominant during rest. Okay, so calming, the calming effect, being calm, being in a restful state, you have the parasympathetic. When you're calm, your heart rate is down, digestion is moving on well, glands are actually active, and things like the secretions are all being secreted during this time. The bronchioles constrict, including the papules. Bowel movement, issues to do with defecation and urination are being promoted. Okay, and then definitely the opposite happens in the sympathetic nervous system. So the opposite of what you have seen there is what we can see here. The heart rate increases, the rate of breathing increases, dilation of the pupil, and also the bronchioles, and mobilization of energy stores to make sure that there is sufficient energy for that stressful situation that you find yourself in. That marks the end of this presentation on the autonomic nervous system.